The forest was unusually still that afternoon, as if holding its breath. Only the faint rustle of leaves and the distant call of a hornbill broke the silence. Then came a low, uneven groan, carried across the clearing. A park ranger paused mid-step, eyes narrowing toward the sound. There, half hidden in a tangle of acacia and thorn brush, lay a lion. The animal's paw was trapped in a cruel metal snare. Its golden fur was streaked with blood, matted around the wound, and each subtle movement sent a shiver of pain through its massive frame. The lion's amber eyes flickered between fear, anger, and an unmistakable plea. He did not thrash, he merely growled softly, low and resonant, a sound more sorrowful than threatening. The ranger approached cautiously, careful to avoid sudden movements. Each step stirred the scent of damp earth and crushed grass, mingling with the faint metallic tang of blood. The lion's ears twitched at every noise, tail flicking anxiously, muscles tensing in readiness. He could have fled or attacked, but he did neither. For now, he remained trapped and vulnerable. The ranger whispered, almost to himself, "I'm not going to hurt you, stay calm." His voice was gentle, soft enough that the lion could hear the intention without feeling endangered. The creature shifted slightly, testing the restraint of the trap, the faint scrape of metal against stone echoing in the quiet woods. Around them, the forest seemed suspended in time. The sunlight filtered through high branches, dappled patterns playing across the lion's fur and the ranger's jacket. Small insects hummed in the underbrush. Even the wind seemed to pause, leaving only the shared tension between man and beast. Kneeling carefully, the ranger studied the trap. Its jagged edges were cruelly twisted, designed to hold strong. The paw within it was swollen, and the deep crimson wound told of hours, perhaps days, of struggle. Each careful assessment was a silent calculation, how to free the animal without provoking panic or aggression. The lion's breathing was uneven, shallow. A subtle rumble resonated from his chest with every exhale, a sound that spoke of discomfort and endurance. The ranger's hands hovered above the earth, waiting, watching, learning the rhythm of the lion's body. Time slowed. Every heartbeat was measured, every rustle of leaves magnified. Then the lion shifted slightly, exposing more of the paw. Pain flared across his face, but he did not resist. There was a fragile truce in that stillness, an unspoken understanding between predator and human. The ranger's gloved hand brushed the ground near the lion's face. "Almost there, just a little longer." The words were not meant to soothe entirely, they were a promise, a calm acknowledgement of shared intent. The moment stretched, delicate as a spider's web. Each of the lion's muscles held tension, ready to spring, yet willing, just for now, to remain. And in that suspended quiet, the forest bore witness, a creature of raw power and the fragile heart of a man, connected by the smallest thread of trust. The lion's growls had quieted to low, cautious rumbles, yet the tension in the clearing remained thick. The ranger knelt a few meters away, surveying the trap and the injury with deliberate care. He knew that any sudden movement could provoke a snap of instinct, a swipe of claws, a powerful leap, a surge of fear. Patience was the only path forward. He retrieved a small set of tools from his pack, heavy-duty pliers, gloves, and a first aid kit. Every sound of metal brushing against fabric made the lion's ears flick, each flick a subtle pulse of awareness and uncertainty. The ranger lowered himself onto the soft earth, moving slowly so the ground beneath him whispered only faintly. Dust and crushed leaves rose in small clouds, carrying the earthy scent of the forest. The lion watched, muscles coiled like tightly wound ropes, but he made no sudden movement. His amber eyes followed each careful motion, tail flicking intermittently, nostrils flaring as he inhaled the scents of human and forest. The sunlight through the branches highlighted each ripple of muscle under golden fur, the veins of his paw showing beneath matted strands soaked with blood. "Easy, stay calm," the ranger murmured softly, voice low and rhythmic, meant to blend with the forest rather than break its fragile quiet. The lion's head tilted slightly, a small acknowledgement of the presence nearby. He made no attempt to struggle, no attempt to flee, yet every fiber of his being remained alert, calculating, wary. The ranger worked inch by inch. He used pliers to loosen the twisted metal of the trap, mindful of each pressure point, each subtle flinch from the lion. The paw throbbed visibly, swollen and red, but the lion's patience was remarkable. Occasionally, he shifted his weight, low growls vibrating softly in his chest, but he allowed the human to inch closer. Around them, the forest continued its muted symphony. A distant hornbill called, the wind stirred dry leaves, and the soft drip of sap from a broken branch punctuated the quiet tension. The smell of earth, blood, and crushed vegetation hung in the air. Even the air itself seemed to pulse with a mixture of fear and cautious trust. Finally, the trap loosened enough to free the paw. The ranger took a deep breath, moving in slowly to lift the iron jaws away. The lion froze, muscles taut, but did not resist. Once the metal fell to the ground, he flexed the paw gingerly, testing the pain. A soft whine escaped him, a sound more of relief than complaint. The ranger quickly applied antiseptic to the raw, ragged wound. The lion's head dipped slightly, eyes narrowing, a gentle acknowledgement that he trusted, even for this fleeting moment, that he would not be harmed. A soft breeze brushed through the clearing, carrying with it the faint fragrance of wildflowers and damp earth. The lion remained still, breathing deep, muscles slowly relaxing as the ranger worked. The ranger murmured once more, a quiet promise more than a command, "Almost there, you're safe now." The lion's tail twitched, ears shifted, but there was no tension to snap, only the delicate, fragile relief of a life freed from a trap. For a moment, predator and human existed in a quiet, suspended space, bound by the careful thread of patience, trust, and shared survival. The trap lay empty on the forest floor, its jagged metal edges glinting faintly in the late afternoon sun. The lion did not immediately bolt. Instead, he remained still, muscles coiled, eyes fixed on the ranger with a quiet intensity. Each breath he took was shallow and measured, the rise and fall of his chest heavy but controlled. The wound on his paw throbbed softly, yet he seemed to understand that the danger had passed, for now. The ranger exhaled slowly, lowering his hands to the ground. He remained silent, aware that any sudden noise could shatter the fragile bond forming between them. The forest itself seemed to hold its breath. Leaves rustled gently above, birds called from the canopy, and the faint hum of insects filled the air, yet nothing intruded upon this suspended moment of connection. Then, almost imperceptibly, the lion leaned forward. His massive nose brushed against the ranger's gloved hand, a tentative contact, gentle yet deliberate. The ranger froze, heart hammering. This was no playful gesture, no imitation of human affection, it was a quiet acknowledgement, a raw, unspoken communication. Trust had been earned. Around them, the forest seemed to exhale, the tension dissolving into the golden light filtering through the trees. The lion flexed his paw cautiously, testing the ground, then shifted his weight, stretching the muscles in his shoulders and back. Each movement was careful, deliberate, as though relearning his body after hours, or perhaps days, of immobilization. "Go on, you're free," the ranger whispered, voice barely audible. The words were simple, almost unnecessary, yet they carried a quiet reverence for the creature before him. The lion paused, head turning briefly to meet the ranger's gaze, eyes reflecting both awareness and a deep, primal intelligence. For several long minutes, neither moved. The lion's chest rose and fell rhythmically, the only sound the soft rustle of leaves beneath his shifting paws. The ranger studied him closely, noting the subtle tremor of muscles, the careful, almost ceremonial way he tested his freedom. It was a moment suspended between relief and awe, where human and animal coexisted in a rare harmony. Finally, the lion began to move. Not in haste, not in fear, but with slow, deliberate steps that carried him toward the thicker brush at the forest's edge. Each step pressed into the damp earth, leaving impressions that the ranger would remember long after the lion had disappeared from view. The golden light of the sun highlighted the curve of his menere, the subtle power in each movement, and the quiet dignity of a creature reclaiming autonomy. Before vanishing, the lion paused once more, turning his head toward the ranger. It was not a farewell in the human sense, but a recognition, a silent promise that this fragile connection, born from pain and patience, would linger in the memory of both. Then, with a final, measured step, he melted into the shadowed underbrush, leaving only the soft imprint of his presence behind. The ranger remained kneeling for a long while, breathing slowly, absorbing the weight of the encounter. Around him, the forest returned to its ordinary rhythm, yet the memory of that moment, the tentative nudge, the quiet trust, would remain indelible, a reminder of the fragile bond between human and wild, of patience rewarded with the unspoken language of life itself. The ranger had risen and began to step back, ready to continue his patrol, when movement at the edge of the clearing caught his eye. The lion had returned. He walked slowly, deliberately, each step careful, yet steady. There was no urgency, no fear, only a quiet confidence, tempered by a lingering wariness. The amber eyes met the ranger's once more, and for a heartbeat, the forest seemed suspended again. The lion did not approach immediately but stopped just beyond arm's reach. His massive frame was relaxed yet alert, muscles rippling under golden fur, the scent of the forest and faint tang of blood clinging to him. The wind stirred, ruffling his menere and carrying with it the mingled smells of earth, pine, and distant water. The ranger stayed still, heart steady, aware that this return was a rare and delicate gesture. The lion lay down, paws stretched in front, tail sweeping softly across the soil. He watched, eyes half-lidded but attentive, the tension of earlier moments replaced by a quiet curiosity. It was an invitation, subtle and unspoken, a chance for connection, not coercion. The ranger knelt again, keeping his hands low and voice soft. "It's okay, you're safe." No more words were necessary. The lion shifted slightly, pressing a paw into the ground near the ranger. Their proximity carried no threat, only a fragile understanding born of mutual respect. Around them, the forest hummed with quiet life. A small bird flitted from branch to branch, insects hummed, and the distant trickle of a stream added rhythm to the moment. The sun filtered through the canopy, casting dappled light that danced across fur and leaf alike. Every detail, the trembling of grass under paw, the subtle rise and fall of chest, the faint brush of air, spoke of a connection deeper than words. Minutes passed in silent communion. The ranger felt a profound weight settle in his chest, an awareness of the fragile line between human and wild, of trust earned and reciprocated. He extended a hand toward the lion, palm resting lightly on the earth. The lion responded with the slightest touch of his nose, a quiet affirmation that this moment, delicate and fleeting, belonged to both of them. The forest seemed to exhale in that stillness. The lion remained, a sentinel of calm and quiet power, neither captive nor companion in the usual sense, but something in between, a witness to patience, to care, and to the unspoken bond that had been forged. Eventually, the lion rose again, stretching, shaking his menere, and testing the freed paw. He glanced toward the ranger once more before beginning his slow, measured journey back into the denser undergrowth. Each step pressed into the soft soil, leaving faint prints that marked the space of their shared encounter. The ranger remained kneeling, absorbing the weight of the moment. The forest resumed its gentle rhythm around him, yet the presence of the lion lingered, invisible but palpable. Trust, once earned, had created a quiet bridge between two worlds, human and wild, and the memory of that bond would remain long after the lion disappeared from view. The sun had begun its slow descent, painting the horizon with molten gold and soft rose hues that spread across the forest canopy. Shadows lengthened between the trunks of acacia and fig trees, brushing the undergrowth with gentle darkness. The lion, now freed from the cruel snare, stood tall, massive muscles rippling beneath tawny fur, yet he moved cautiously, testing each step with his recently healed paw. Every motion was deliberate, measured, as if reacquainting himself with the simple, unrestrained act of walking. The ranger remained motionless, watching the lion with a quiet reverence. He could feel the weight of the day, the tension, the fear, the fragile trust, settle over him like a gentle cloak. The air was thick with the earthy scent of the forest floor, mingled with the faint, sweet aroma of wildflowers and the distant tang of a flowing stream. A soft breeze stirred, brushing through the lion's menere, lifting strands of fur that glimmered in the fading sunlight like threads of spun gold. For several moments, neither man nor beast moved. The forest around them seemed suspended, as if acknowledging the significance of the moment. Birds chirped softly, hidden in the branches above, while insects hummed in the underbrush. Every sound was muted, a quiet accompaniment to the silent communion unfolding in the clearing. The lion's amber eyes met the ranger's gaze, and in them, there was recognition, an understanding that transcended words. It was a glance that carried a lifetime of wild experience, of fear survived, of trust earned. The lion lifted his head and shook it slightly, a slow, fluid motion that spread ripples of power through his menere and shoulders. He sniffed the air, nostrils flaring, sensing the sense that told him the forest was once again his domain. Step by careful step, he began moving toward the denser undergrowth, his paws pressing into the soft soil and leaving impressions that would mark the moment long after he had vanished. Each step was confident yet graceful, a reminder of the quiet strength that comes from endurance and survival. The ranger whispered, almost to himself, "Go, you're free now." The words barely rose above the rustle of leaves, yet they carried the weight of respect and farewell. The lion paused briefly, turning his head to look back one final time. There was no human sentiment in his gaze, no gratitude, no affection, but something equally profound, a silent acknowledgement that their lives had intersected, that compassion had passed between them in a brief, perfect moment. Then, without haste, he disappeared into the shadowed forest beyond, leaving only the faint traces of his passing. The ranger remained kneeling, absorbing the quiet aftermath. The forest exhaled around him, the wind swept through the branches, carrying the earthy aroma of soil and vegetation. Distant birds resumed their songs, and the subtle hum of insects returned to the underbrush. The moment of connection lingered in the air, invisible yet palpable. Trust, once granted and reciprocated, had left a lasting imprint, not on the lion who returned to his world, but on the ranger who would carry this memory forever. He rose slowly, brushing the dust from his clothes, and began walking back along the trail. Each step was weighted with reflection, the lessons of patience, courage, and empathy settling deep within him. The golden light faded to soft lavender, the forest transforming into quiet shadows that promised another day. The lion was gone, yet the resonance of his presence, the silent strength, the cautious trust, the fleeting gesture of connection, remained. The ranger knew that this encounter would linger, not just as a memory of rescue, but as a reminder of the delicate bond between human and wild, and the extraordinary moments that patience and compassion can create.